All right, so next is Nowhere Boy. And Nowhere Boy is about the teenage years of John Lennon. And what's interesting about the film is that it was directed by a British artist named Sam Taylor Wood, Sam Taylor Wood being a woman. And what she decides to do is she's not really telling you the story about the creation of the Beatles. She's really telling you a family melodrama. Because it turns out that John Lennon's childhood, from about 5 until kind of a little beyond the teenage years, they were very, very dramatic. And a lot of people who don't really know this will really kind of groove to this story, although I was a little troubled by the movie overall. Let's look at a clip first.
I'm John. Paul. Want a beer? Oh, I'd love a tea. Is there any tea left, please?
There's no tea left, John.
No, didn't think so. You got that back to front, haven't you, mate?
I walk 1, 2, 5, 3, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5 more. Upon 12, I'm starting to drag. 15, the more I'm ready to sag. Man, I get to the top, and I'm too tired to rock.
So you didn't see it in that clip necessarily, but when John Lennon was about 5 years old, he was given up by his mother to go live with his aunt, played by Kristin Scott Thomas. So throughout his formative years, John Lennon was living with his Aunt Mimi. Turns out that John Lennon's mother really lived sort of with a second family just a few blocks away. So when John Lennon became a little bit older, he wound up seeking out his real mother. And the crux of the film is the relationship, almost like a triangle between John, the very stern Aunt Mimi who brought him up, and the mother who sort of introduces him to music. There's, you know, it's funny because in the film there's some very questionable choices, including this one, Wade, which is John's mother gives him a banjo. Mm-hmm. And that's where he sort of learns how to play the guitar, by playing this banjo. And in the film, in one of a couple of questionable choices, there's this effects move where it's to show the passage of time. You see John in the corner of the frame playing the banjo while everything around him goes in very fast motion to show that time is passing as he learns how to play the banjo. And stuff like that, especially for a film that takes place in the early 60s, I did not like that at all, or in the 50s.
You know, that stuff didn't bother me quite so much. I like the film. I like it quite a bit. I've been trying to figure out why I don't love it. Because
Here's why.
It's normally the kind of film that I would just completely go nuts for.
Here's why. You ready?
Yeah.
If the film was not about John Lennon, would you care about any of it? If this is a movie about Rudiger Cheese Baron, and Rudiger Cheese Baron lives in Liverpool,
cheese. I'd like to know who the Baron is.
It's an inside joke. This goes back a few weeks, but yeah.
Okay, let's say it was about Rudiger Cheese Baron, who is a teenager who lives with his aunt, and he turns out that his mother is only a few blocks away, and they rekindle their relationship. Would you care about the film?
I could, but it would have to be done better than it is.
That is true.
Yeah.
But I will give them credit for this, which is there is very little reference to the Beatles. Like, they don't try to force Beatles references in the film because they feel they have to. In fact, there's one very sly scene.
There aren't even any Beatles tunes in the movie.
No. The film opens with a very famous chord, which is about as much Beatley as it gets.
As much as they were willing to try and get away with without licensing.
But also, the thing about the film is that they didn't have to, because again, it's not about the Beatles. It's really about the Quarrymen and how they started. And also, there's a very sly moment in the film towards the end when John is about to go to Hamburg to record with the Beatles, when John says to Aunt Mimi, I have a new band now, would you like to know its name? And Mimi says no. So he doesn't even get to hear. Yeah. We don't even get to hear the words The Beatles, which I thought was very clever.
I think this would be a really good double feature with Backbeat. If you remember Backbeat?
Backbeat's good.
Backbeat's a really good movie. Story of Stuart Sutcliffe, who was one of the 2 lost Beatles, you know, the 2 that we never hear about. Backbeat's a really, really good film, a much better film than this is. But I do think that together it makes an interesting double feature, and you learn a lot about that period of time, about these particular characters, because Stuart Sutcliffe is like, in this film, I think, as a background character for maybe 18 seconds. You hear his name, we're going to Stuart's apartment to rehearse or something. You know, that's as much as he's present in this film. So there is an interesting linkage between the two. But I would recommend that people see this. Just don't expect something brilliant. It is interesting, like you said, probably basically because it's about John Lennon. But that being said, I still struggle with the casting a little bit.
Well, Aaron Johnson, who plays John Lennon, he's the kid from Kick-Ass, and he's British. In real life,
he is British. He is British, which I didn't realize when we saw Kick-Ass. But you know, there are scenes in here where when he has, say, a short sleeve shirt on, or when he's, you know, when you see him sort of, he's buff, and John Lennon was not buff, and it was hard for me to get past the idea that this guy, I get it, he's a ladies' man, he's into the girls, and the girls are loving him, and he's getting, you know, sure, that part of John, but John Lennon was not an athlete, and this kid is very, very athletic.
Well, it's funny because
and that may be unfair, but it made it very hard to sort of buy him as John Lennon, no matter how good the performance was.
Well, you know, and then we'll move on to an early review of Red, ladies and gentlemen. But first, let me just say that when the film was done, I thought to myself, should Aaron Johnson play it as if he's John Lennon, or should he play it as if he's the kid in this story? Regardless of being John Lennon, he's a kid in this story. I almost feel like you have the burden to be John Lennon. You have the burden of that character, whereas if you just play it as this 15-year-old kid who has this crisis, I think he might have been better off.
And it reminds me a little bit, not to get overly nerdy here, but when...
Wait, overly nerdy?
I know,
When does that happen? Let me check my watch 10 seconds ago.
When Richard Attenborough was directing Denzel Washington in Cry Freedom, playing Stephen Biko, he specifically told him, he says, don't act heroic. Don't play the hero. He says, we'll make you look heroic. Just play the guy. And that's a really difficult thing for a lot of actors to do when they are very aware of the historic import of the person they're playing. They walk in thinking, okay, this person comes with a lot of baggage, therefore I have to inflate myself to fill the measure of their greatness. And you don't really. The filmmaker can do that, but you want that character to be honest. John Lennon never woke up and said, today I'm going to be John Lennon. He was himself every day, and it's our perception, it's the way the world kind of interfaces with that person that creates the perception of greatness.
Okay, so we mildly disagree on Nowhere Boy.
I like it, I don't love it.
Okay, you know what, actually I think we agree. I like it, I don't love it.
Yeah.
Look at that, it's unbelievable.
We're good.
Wow.
We're good.
No wonder we're a team.
We're good.
Are you Laverne or Shirley?
You took it there.
Squiggy. Squiggy.
You Hannity or Combs? Corey wants to know who's Hannity and who's Combs.
Couldn't say Paul and John?
No.
Coming right off that?
No. No.
70th birthday, by the way, this weekend. John Lennon would have been 70.
And that's why the film is being released now.
Yep.
But he is?
Why would you even?
Too soon?
Yeah.
All right, so last film. Now, we're not doing a show next week. And there's a reason why. Yeah, exactly, really. Hold your applause. There's a reason why we're not doing a show next week. Because I want to eat free food. That's really the reason why we're not doing a show next week.
We had free food tonight from New Tech.
We did. Philip Nelson, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I just want to say, we're not doing a show next week because next week there's a big DreamWorks party. This is the time of the year where Wade and myself, as members of the LA Film Critics Association, we are starting to get our butts kissed with free food. And so next Thursday, there's a DreamWorks.
It seemed like you wanted us to applaud that. You were like, free food.
Okay.
It's not free food for them.
Here's the thing. No, wait.
Yeah, we're not going.
Here's the thing. They don't applaud. They pretend they don't care. But if I invited them, they'd be all over that stuff.
But here's the thing. If we don't do a show, I save money because I don't have to pay for food, but then they don't get free food. So actually, because you're getting free food, the crew doesn't get free food.
Okay, you know what? Here's what I'll do. I'm going to go around the buffet line and stuff food in my pockets, come back here. We'll do a show, and I will give them the disgusting, coagulated, dripping, greasy food that's been in my pocket for 2 hours, and the staff can eat that.